Hi there, I had a bit of a problem when I put my cupboards back in after the carpet had been replaced. One of the drawers, the bottom was falling out, so I decided to glue it at the back into the slot, the bottom of the drawer, and to hold it together while it was gluing, I put some rope around it. But then I also decided to wrap some insulation tape around it as well to hold it in place. And when I took the insulation tape off, because it's cheap furniture and it's got like paper on the front, which I didn't realise, I thought it was like plastic melamine, it left this big stripe of chipboard across the front where it's pulled the surface off. Now fortunately I found that I'd placed under these the spare bits from when I made these cupboards, and there were 8 of these pegs that hold the shelves in, so that made me think I might have some spare shelves somewhere. So I went up in the loft and I found I've got 2 spare shelves, so I'm going to attempt to make a new drawer front from one of the spare shelves. So I've just taken the old drawer apart, taken the front off, and then I've marked out on here how big the thing needs to be cut out, and also where the slot needs to be for the bottom to go in. And now I'm going to take this downstairs and cut it. Also the shelves are a bit thicker than the drawer fronts, so what I'm going to have to do is fortunately the drawer has enough room to go back a bit more into the cupboard than it does at the moment. It's not right up against the wall or anything. And what stops the drawer going in too far is the front of the runners. So I'm going to probably have to take the runners off and cut a bit off the front of them, just so they stop in the right place. But for the moment I'm just going to cut this wood. Okay, so I think it's best to try and cut the slot first, so it's got a nice flat surface to work on the new drawer front, rather than trying to cut it near the edge of a piece of wood like this. When I buy power tools, I tend to buy good ones of ones I'm going to use a lot, like electric drills. So I've got a Makita. But anything I don't use very much, like a circular saw or a jigsaw that I'm only going to use once in a few years, I basically buy the cheapest thing I can. So this is a Power Plus Promo, and these basically are very basic tools which probably would wear out quite quickly if you're using them all the time, but are okay for occasional use. So I'm just going to try and see, because the minimum depth is quite deep on it, so I'm just going to check it works okay. And it's got a very coarse blade, and that's the only blade I've got. So I'm going to try and see how it compares to that slot by doing a quick trial, and then if that's okay I'll run along the new piece of drawer front with it. Okay, so the quick test has shown that it's about the same depth on its minimum depth as the existing slot, and I've tried to cut a new slot and that's been reasonably successful. So I'm now going to put the new piece of wood on here and try running along that with the circular saw. As you can see, I've got carpet on the top of the workbench so it doesn't scratch the delicate laminate on the front of the cupboard. So let's cut the slot, which is a bit wider than I intended because I had to run down there twice, but it doesn't really matter because it'll be glued in anyway, the front of the drawer. And now to cut the it down to size. Because this paper laminate is so delicate, I'm not going to do any cutting with the circular saw or jigsaw where I couldn't do very good straight lines. I'm going to use the finest saw I've got, which is the fine cut floorboard veneer saw, which is probably a bit finer than my normal hand saws. Over here are a bit coarser. And I've just done a test cut here to show that it cuts nice and cleanly and is better on the side it cuts from than on the back, which is a bit ragged. So I'm going to cut through from the front rather than the back, which means I need to remark this on the front, because currently all the markings are on the back. So that seems to be cutting nicely. I should have said that for the slot on the back, ideally you probably use a router, but I don't have one, which is why I use the circular saw. Okay, so that's basically cut it out to the right size. The next thing to do will be to put some edging strip on the ends. Got some that vaguely matches. So to do the iron-on strip you need an iron, and if it's a steam iron you need to turn the steam function off and have it pretty hot. Then cut a piece of the edging strip so it's slightly bigger than you want. and then you can trim it down afterwards. And you also need, if like me your iron's quite old and all the surface has gone off the bottom, you need something like a handkerchief which you can put over that edging strip to stop it getting horrible marks on it. So we've cut the edging strip down to size with a knife and then filed the edges. It's looking okay. It's a bit lighter than the other because it comes from my kitchen cupboards, but it's only on the ends of the drawers, which won't be seen when they're closed, so it doesn't matter too much. So the final thing to do is to drill the holes. So now I've just marked and I'm drilling these holes. I've got a sort of rudimentary depth stop on the drill. I've just wrapped some tape around it at a centimetre to make sure I don't drill too far and drill all the way through the front, which I did once on a lady's TV stand when I was assembling it and there was a hole missing and it went straight through the top. She said she wasn't too bothered, but I never saw her again. So now I've just put the drawer front back onto the drawer and put the handles on and screwed the runners on at the sides. But when we close them up, as I said at the start, because the shelf is thicker than the old drawer front used to be, it doesn't quite shut enough. Yeah, so that bit there is where it would need filing. So I think that's turned out pretty well, to be honest. Thanks for watching.